Hello and welcome to another Sacred Wisdom podcast with me, Becky Parks, my co-host Chris Clifford, and our special guest today, Kim Kindersley. So today we're wanting to talk a bit about our upcoming monthly spiritual topic, which is going to be on attention, intention, and inspiration. And also, at some point today, we'll be having a look at Kim's new projects, working closely with Simon and me in CC. And I'll hand over to Chris now for some more information. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, thank you, Becky. Hello, Kim. It's always amazing when the three of us get together. And actually, right before we started recording the podcast, we had this amazing conversation, which Kim, Becky, and I typically do. And then we stop and we're like, well, we should be recording this. So hopefully we'll recreate some of that conversation here because we were telling Kim a little bit about the Sacred Wisdom Tour that took place last month and how amazing it was. And we were talking about the beautiful energies that happened as a part of the tour and as a part of all of the beautiful souls who got together. And also talking a bit about how all of us have carried those energies back with us. And it really has been, it sounds a little cliche to say life-changing, but truly, I personally feel it's been life-changing that everything seems a little bit brighter now, more focused. When we think about our monthly spiritual topic of attention and intention, just much clearer attention, even on the small things like the trees and the mountains and the sun coming up in the morning. So anyway, that's kind of a long introduction. And I think, Kim, I'm going to pass it to you for some of your beautiful comments on this subject.
Wow, I was just thinking one of the biggest things at the time when we get together with a group of people and we just share space with intention, there's going to be some attention, but what comes out of it is this massive inspiration. And it's like I've been thinking a lot about what is this? I mean, to relate it to the circles here, it's like, yes, okay, well, we started off thinking we're going in. It's called breath work. But actually, I've been realizing more and more that the bit that's really, really filling us up, filling our cup up, is when we just sit together and listen to one another and share our stories. And it's like, oh my God, at the beginning of every 90 minutes or 2 hours, we have no idea where anyone's from. We know there's probably something that drew us into coming to the theatre or coming to the CC meeting or whatever it is. But we don't know anything about that person. And at the very end of the circle, we share a little bit. Someone's from over here, someone's from Iceland, someone's from South America, someone's from Dubai or Saudi Arabia or New Zealand or Hawaii. And then we realize that we are the same source. We're family, and it's like that feeling, especially if you're a black sheep of the family like I am. It's like it's like I find my family every day. And now I realize that my family is this family and it's growing and we inspire one another just by being together. It's really, really exciting. And I feel that more and more people are coming into these spaces and are finding this common purpose and this sense of being part of the same source. And if it wasn't for groups like CC, if it wasn't for, the wonderful people that are sort of sponsoring the circles every week, like Alchemy Yoga Center, these people who really, really care about humanity, about the species, about our connection with nature, you know, the world would be not just a sadder place. I would be feeling less optimistic, but I'm feeling very optimistic. Hearing about the tour just now, it's like, yeah, this is it. We just have to get together. It's fantastic.
Thank you, Kim. Do you know, it was, I think Chris was saying beforehand that the tour was just so much more than we thought it would be. You know, there was 6 months of intense planning, and lots of people were planning different aspects of it because we had 3 different main venues. But it was just so much more special than we could have imagined. There was just a wonderful energy carried along with the whole tour. And I remember saying it, especially in Tennessee and North Carolina. I can't remember if I said it also in Florida, but I really acknowledged the fact that everyone else had their journey to get there. So as you say, people come from all over the place, and there were people from almost every state there, including Hawaii and Alaska, at pretty much all 3. People came from all around the world, to attend
Mate.
there, and everyone had their own journey, not just the physical journey. And it didn't start with the sort of packing your suitcase and traveling there, and it didn't really start with buying the ticket to attend or joining CC. It started before then, because it almost felt like a culmination of
Yeah.
everything that everyone has been through and worked through and become, that we were all just there at that moment. And there was a lot of hugging, there was quite a lot of tears, people, playing Julian Lennon's Imagine always brought everyone to tears. So do tell him that, please. I mean,
I
people
can't
loved
wait
it
to tell him.
so much. They all sang along.
So beautiful.
And we did acknowledge that it's about each and every person, and them following their own life path, connecting with themselves, doing their own spiritual work and inner work, and really connecting with why are they here on earth? What are they here to do? What are their gifts? And just sharing that with the world, even if it's just anchoring in the energy. We don't all have to be able-bodied. We don't all have to be 20 years old. None of us are 20 years old. you know
No.
People from all walks of life, and everybody had that spark of creation. Everybody was lit up from within, and it was just so incredibly joyful. And as Chris says, we all took away from it just the sense of it having been the best time of our lives, almost. I think it was really. It was just so fun, so exciting, so inspirational, and just so special. And obviously, we want to do this again, but different places in America and different places around the world. But as you say, there is something very special about people who have become what we say awake and aware, who have also done a lot of inner spiritual work, who are more closely connected with themselves, who do have that sense of connection with the creator, the divine source. And when you get a lot of people like that together in a room, the energy levels are off the charts. And it changes you. It changes you really on a cellular level and on an energetic level, so that we all come away with a sense of feeling lighter and brighter. And that's the only way I can describe it.
I love that. Lighter and brighter. And I think a line that we hear a lot, I'm sure you do too, is I no longer feel alone. I no longer feel alone. It was like, yes, I was doing some Zoom calls, and that's very, very helpful. But there's something about when the energy comes into a space or a room, and then all of those feelings come up, and everyone's being authentic and realizing that they can just be themselves. They found their people. And what you said about people coming from every state, from all around the world, there's the intention right there. Talk about an intention. I'm going to go there. You'd put a lot of attention on, okay, you've got to work out how, this is this detail. I'm always like, Kim, you've got to look at the detail. So there's the attention. There's a lot of attention there. And then relaxing into, wow, this inspiration just flows really freely when those two bits are done. And it's like, oh, I was saying to this group today, I'm going, and they move me to tears all the time. When I see, particularly the younger ones who go, and you can see that they've been holding maybe a cultural, quite a tough belief system that's been very difficult for them, and without going into any kind of politics, but a system that maybe is quite oppressive for women, for example. And then somehow, you hear the story of, well, how did you survive, going through, how did you get here today? Well, as a child, I would communicate silently with this little golden being that lived inside of my heart. And I'm going, whoa, really? So you kept that alive all these years? And how does it feel now? And the expression came out something like, it's now it's almost like it's coming out in her song. So I came in the other day and she was singing before we arrived. She's from Saudi Arabia. And it was like the sound of an angel singing. And it was like, oh, that angel was living inside of me all of those years. What's she going to do now? She's going back to awaken, not to do anything in an aggressive sense, but simply to get all of the angels within everybody singing. It's beauty, it's love. It's like the beauty we make never dies. It just becomes more and more alive when we meet each other here. And and then I want to meet another human being like this and another, and I want to hear their story. And how did you get through the anger part of this? And what was it like being a man there? And and so on and so on. And just listen to these endless stories. And yet somehow the spirit was kept alive. And then when we get together, boom, just takes off. It's like all our fires come together to make one big fire. I think this is why we gather. I think this is the meaning, like when we used to do the great gatherings and ceremonies, like they'd all come from all parts of the world to bring the medicine into the center. And I think this is what we're doing. This is what you're doing. This is why we're having this conversation.
It's such a beautiful story of inspiration with a little golden bean. I love that, Kim. And I wanted to call that out because our monthly spiritual topic deep dive is on inspiration. And with the tour, there were countless people who came up to me and said, I came here looking for inspiration and I found it, or I left feeling so inspired. And I think it's exactly what you said. It's that gathering. In our spiritual topic, we wrote about writer's block, which I've experienced many times as an author. But it's not just for authors, because we all have this beautiful creative energy inside of us, but it's very easy if we allow it. Life happens, and it's very easy for it to get lost or blocked in some way or buried. And I know this was the case for me, and clearly it was for so many others, when we were just in this space of beautiful energy. And so it wasn't anything that anyone said or did, but to be able to be in that space of beautiful energy and to be able to hug people from around the world who we've only seen on Zooms, like that energy that creates, I still feel inspired from it. And it just shows what a difference being together, and the beautiful souls who are a part of your circles, Kim, and the beautiful souls who are a part of CC, like getting together. I mean, it's magical. It's inspirational. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. I just wanted to say as well, Kim, pick upon something that you said. So she was singing her song, and even if we're technically don't have a good voice or are tone deaf, we are all actually singing our song, the song of our life, the song of our soul, the song of our intertwined lives. It's, it constantly gets enriched. So we're all vibrations. So as beings, as souls, as physical beings with a soul in our body, we all have our own vibration energy signature, and that is a song. So getting together is basically weaving the tapestry of the soul lines. And that's why it's so special. And if you know consciously what's actually happening, then that's bound to enlighten people. It's bound to enrich and enlighten them.
I just got so many goosebumps because as you were speaking, I had this, and this is like, for me, it's like, okay, if the human soul is like one thread, one divine, beautiful thread, or it could be a note or a thread. And it's like this idea that we are weaving our lives. And the weaving is both our lives coming together, but it's also our songs. So it's also like a symphony. So to begin with, it's like just two notes, and then it's three, and then it's four, and then it's like, okay, there's an entire orchestra here
Yeah.
harmonizing. And even if there's someone in the corner who can't play the kettle drum, or maybe they are tone deaf, it's okay, because the orchestra is so vast, no one's going to notice that little out of tune violin in the corner. Or if they do, it's okay, because it's just going to add a really interesting little bit of flavor. And then it reminded me of, oh my God, this weaving is the tapestry, and we're
Mm.
weaving it, and it's like coming, my God, and we're not in the center yet, but we're it's like we're creating the most beautiful tapestry of the new
Mm.
earth. It's up to us and the symphony, and we're all the conductors, we're all the instruments, we
I'm
are
sure,
this, we're this. This is
I'm
what we
sure
are.
this is how Source sees us. If you imagine like an overview parent watching its billions of children interacting, and that they're just focused on the light and sound aspect, that's how they see us, as
Yeah.
just beings of vibration interacting, and sometimes you know areas light up with a bright flash, and sometimes they're darker, and it's just constant and ever changing. But overall, it's incredibly important for humanity for these events to happen, because when an event is like off the charts with joy and love and happiness and enlightenment, then that genuinely affects the whole world and the whole of humanity. And, you know, I just know that's what you do with your circles, and that's what happens with our meetings, and that's what happens with smaller meetups, within the organization and other organizations where they're focused on this, or whether there's a great sense of joy, even just a regular birthday party, or a child's christening, or welcoming a new baby into the world. There's the Whenever people come together in ceremony with a sense of joy, then that will always just enrich and enlighten humanity, the energy of it.
So that's so beautifully put. And another great one is this. Look, we've got very, very good at making very dark TV series and movies, and there's enough of them out there. And, we all know the plot line. And I was having this discussion the other day. I said, well, hang on. Maybe this particular series that we're going to make is going to change direction now. And it's never been made before, because the plot line is completely different, and it's going to have some kind of ending that we could never have imagined. It's beyond imagination. And it's like everyone's going, well, what could that be? I said, well, we haven't made it yet. We're making it together now. And no one in there's going to die except, except maybe the part of them that isn't serving. So maybe that, the drama is in the letting go of the old. But this new earth is different because it's based on love and this inspiration. And it's not to say that a flood won't come and a fire, and that, that we won't face difficulties together, but it'll be in such a different way because we'll all be caring for one another, loving one another. And until people know that, and until you know it, you don't know it. But once you know it, and you have that experience, like coming into the rooms with you guys or coming to a circle, it's that old cliche, but it's true. It is life-changing because in that moment, everything makes sense. And once it makes sense and you've seen it and you've felt it, it's not going away. And then something different is going to come from it in your life, in the life of your community, in the direction of your life. People coming in here literally going, I'm going home, selling everything, and I'm exiting the matrix, and I'm going to find a new way of being, a new way of seeing, a new way of living, and a new way of giving. And I release the old, but I don't quite know what it looks like yet. And it's okay. It's all okay because we're all figuring that out together. That's why we are together. That's why we're here. That's why you've created this amazing organization, so that we can figure it out and we get clear. And as you beautifully put, source working through us in this divine creation. I mean, that's a pretty exciting life.
Yeah, that's just a beautiful way to kind of come back to attention that we're all creating our own movie, our own book, a new chapter, right? And so we're doing that through our attention, through our thoughts, through what we focus on, through the energy that we have around us, the people that were around us. I think, a lot of times we'll think about like the food that we consume and that kind of thing, but not always the rest of the energy that's around us. And as we shift and move toward more of that which we desire and put out clear intentions, we really are creating a new reality, not only for ourselves, but also for the collective too, because it all comes together.
That's right. And there are so many, sometimes people have a very difficult time. They might get stuck in a zone. Could be an area where they feel like their lives is sort of intractable, unmovable. But then maybe a crack of light comes in, a little bit of inspiration to, well, hang on. I've heard about this amazing project in Oregon where that there's this land and people are, in return for working, on the land, you get this and that, and there's fresh water. And I'm just using this as an example. But actually, there are these little projects all over the place. And all it takes is that little switch to go on to say, well, actually, hang on. What is stopping me from just moving towards something that feels more aligned for me? It doesn't have to be a super dramatic move, but it can just be a little incremental one. And then you'll start to feel more alignment. You'll be dealing with less of the things that you don't want to deal with. Maybe that's just the old part of you kind of dropping away. And so it's so important to follow the inspiration. And I feel like that's what we're all here for. It's not about us, it's about our family, our global family, our desire to share love, so that every human being can feel safe and feel authentic and feel heard and seen. And I'm thinking about all the mothers on the planet who, all their deepest desire is just to take care of their children. And we know in places of the world, for many, that's not possible, or because of economic difficulties, there's tremendous struggles going on. So it's never been more important to create spaces of safety, of inspiration, of caring. And it's happening everywhere. And I think we mentioned it earlier, that we're on the cusp of something that's going to become almost like a really big wave of this, as more and more people understand that it's really about love. And that's why we will have to get together more and do more tours and do more circles, because we just have to. And then more and more people will get inspired to start doing their own and bringing people together. And it's a kind of a demystification, in a way, of this divine imprint, blueprint, the longing for our cosmic origins I mentioned earlier. For me, this is like, oh my God, is that who we are? Let's explore it together.
Kim, that's just so beautiful. And I think there's always times in one's life when one feels a bit, trapped or stuck in a rut, and going through the motions and thinking,
Oh,
how can I get out of this? There's no way out. But as you say, there always is. And I think it's when one has the opportunity just to see things from a different point of view, to have that, even if it's a tiny connection with, their spark of life and their inspiration. And it's as well, you see, things like fear, things like the Matrix, it all boxes it in. It all suppresses inspiration. And when one is aware of that, and aware of the limitations, then it's easier to navigate a path out of it, to see a way forwards. And there's often many different ways forwards, and it's about looking at options and choosing, like, which is the best one, and how can I get from A to B, or A to B to C to D. And just knowing, I think it's important, staying in alignment with your higher self. And I say this because there are many options. So it's important to stay aligned with one's higher self, then the best path forwards. And you will be shown
right.
and guided the steps, step by step. Yeah.
It's the deepest principle of trust. And
Yeah.
and the irony, because people say, well, how do I know how to trust? And I would, maybe just very briefly mention, for those who might be facing difficulties or feeling that stuckness, without going into any huge detail, I had very dark chapters in my life, very dark, and in places where there didn't seem like there was going to be any life left. It was that dark, the darkest place we can go, really. And in those moments, I do remember going, I have nothing to live for. I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving. And somewhere deep inside, and I feel that it has been with me even in the times of my difficult teenage years and the problems that I had with addiction and so on, that somehow, even in those times, there's something in all of us that's just innately there, the source. It's never not there. And this is what's so extraordinary about this breathing business, because of course we're all three of us breathing as we're sitting here speaking, listening, and sharing now. Inspire is breathe in. It's just, you just got to slow down. We close the eyes, the heart opens, breathe in. And even in that dark hour, that, like that beautiful story of the woman with that little golden light, whatever it is for you, somewhere inside of you, it is there. And sometimes it can be likened to, you think the fire's gone out, it's just ash. And if you just poke around, there's one tiny little ember left. And then the breath becomes that, just blow on that ember. You gather a few little twigs and you blow on it, and then it comes alight again. So whatever it is, number one, don't give up. Number two, know that it's always there. And number three, just blowing gently on that last ember it'll bring that life fire back. And then you reach out, just like someone the other day who was having a very difficult time. I feel alone. What shall I do? Suddenly there are 5 names and numbers of complete strangers saying to her, call me, call us, call me. Never met her before. Just ordinary, wonderful, magnificent, magical human beings who simply care. And I don't know what's come of it, but I already feel the wheels in motion for this particular beautiful human being changing her life just from reaching out and finding out that actually there's some complete strangers who will talk to her and take care of her somehow. Just offering a little hand of help. It's just these little things that can turn into a raging fire. And my goodness me, are we on the way here or what? And I mean, we've been doing this a long time, but at the same time, I feel like you said it, Becky, every day, it's like we're starting afresh. It's like today's a new day. What are we up to today? What are we doing? It's like, where are we going? And we're having this conversation, and I'm all bubbly and excited, and my hair standing on end, and I'm going, oh my God, inspired.
Yeah, I think, Kim, that's such a great illustration of how the little things that we do can make such a huge difference. It's like, I think sometimes we just don't realize how much a kind word or even a smile or even a hug to someone who just needs a little bit of contact, how that can energetically shift things in such a big way. We tend to focus on like the big things. I think we're taught to focus on the big things, but
Yeah.
it's those little interactions that really can make all the difference in the world. And then I also wanted to quickly go back to something that Becky said, where she was talking about as we're all working through struggles and whatever it is that we're going through, keeping that alignment with your higher self. And I think that's just incredibly important. And then also asking for guidance, because if we stay in our little box, the solutions that we come up with aren't always, and probably rarely are, the right way, the best path forward. And so Susamino always says, ask for your highest and greatest good. And so that's what I tend to do when I connect, because I love that. And it feels so powerful and so empowering to be like, okay, I don't need to know what the solution is to whatever it is, but I'm going to ask for help for my highest and greatest good. And then, yeah, Kim, back to what you were saying, then you have to have an incredible amount of faith and patience. But then I do believe that we all have so many guides and angels and helpers. And so stay in alignment and ask for help, and don't need to have the solution. I think that's the hardest part for me, because I used to always be a planner and I'd be like, okay, well, here's the 5 things that I could do. And it's like, so I have to kind of stop that and be like, no, just sit in faith.
I love
That's
that.
so beautiful.
Yeah, Chris, I love that, because we were having this conversation the other day, because you and I were talking about having faith and trust, and that is so important. It's not just, oh, people say you've got to trust the universe, or you've got to trust the plan, or whatever, but having trust and faith in creation, in your connection with the divine, it's fundamental. And there's been times in my life where, and it's usually the times when life is most stressful and challenging, that I've had the greatest signs. And there was a thing when I was telling Chris, and I'll share now, I was kind of stepping out of one life and into another, and it was a big step. And I remember I think it was around March time, or I don't know when it was, but it seemed cold and wintry. And I was actually on a dog walk and sheltering behind an oak tree, and just thinking I need to get the strength from this oak tree, because I know I'm going to be stepping into the unknown soon. And just then I literally got such a strong visualization of like, it was almost like a canyon. So you sort of imagine the Grand Canyon, but with a rope bridge. You know, like the rope bridge is where you got ropes to hold on to, and then just like wooden slats. And it really went like this across a very big canyon. And I got the absolute sense of, well, this is what you've got to do to get from one side to the other. It's going to be precarious and it's going to be challenging. And at the moment, you're on dry land, you're safe. Do you want to do this journey? And I remember thinking, I don't have to do it if I don't want to, but I feel like it's the right thing to do. I feel like I need to do this for the next part of my life. And what was so interesting was that bridge analogy, and I'm sure it was given to me by my guides, by source. It was a very powerful image, and it came back to me at different times throughout, I would say, a 3 to 4 year period, where I was literally shown, well, this is where you are on the bridge. This is where you are on the bridge. So I was actually shown by my guides or by source or my higher self, just from time to time. It would drop out of the blue without me just saying, oh, where am I on the bridge? I don't remember asking that, but I just remember being shown, this is where you are. So I knew when I took my first step onto the ladder over the big Grand Canyon space. And I knew when I was about halfway through, and I knew when I was sort of walking uphill on the bridge, getting towards land the other side, and then I knew when I was safely on the land the other side. So that was so interesting, and I think that is an important analogy, because there are times in everyone's lives when they step out of perhaps their comfort zone where they are right now, and they can see where they want to be, but it's, how do I get there? What are the pitfalls? What are the challenges? There's an element of trust. All these big transitions from A to B involve a level of trust. And it's important, not, if that's where your heart is telling you to go, it's important to do this. Otherwise, there will be a level of stagnation. There will be a level of depression, in the sense that energy levels get lowered because you're not in alignment with your higher self. So there's an element of resistance and holding on. So I think, where does that come into attention and intention? Well, it's all part of life, isn't it? It's all part of, when we're looking at the topic attention and intention, we are looking at, where do we want to be, in the next phase of our life? What do we want to be doing? How can we become a better version of ourselves? How can we live more in alignment with our higher self? How do we even start? What do I want to know? For very many of us, it's like, well, I'm very happy where I am right here, right now, but I'd love to learn more. I'd love to just find out more about a certain topic. And or I'd love to get into gardening, or I'd love to get into, for many people, it's absolutely great and fine being where you are. You just perhaps want to learn a bit more, integrate more into your lifestyle, perhaps think about, I'd like to do a bit more to help. Where do I start? But for some of us, especially, as you say, well, especially for those of us on an awakened journey, knowing how precious time is, and knowing how precious our connection to our authentic self is, sometimes we have to make the decisions to step into an unknown, which can appear very challenging, but it's all about life's choices.
Beautifully put, and it's big subject, but if there is resistance, that's where you go. And if there's something that's uncomfortable in the comfort zone, that's when you know that your compass is it's sending you in the right direction. The hero's journey part, the part of the hero's journey, when you've lost the path in the forest and you're floundering around in the undergrowth, and it's dark and it's scary, you don't know in that moment that the path is actually just a foot to your right. It's very, very, very close by. And so sometimes what we just got to do is say, okay, take a deep breath, slow down, settle down, just sit down. And then the morning sun comes, and then there's just enough light, and then it's and then you're back on the path. And even though you don't know quite what the destination is going to be, at least you're back on the path. And you've heard these wonderful stories about a place that's, this that you were told about in a wonderful tale by your grandfather or grandmother by the fire or whatever it is. So when you do find those moments, they are the moments of inspiration. They are the moments to put your attention on. I was taught by a fantastically beautiful, humble man who was head of the Rosicrucians, actually, in Western Australia at some point. And the week or two before he died, he talked about trust. And I said to him, how will I know? How do you really know what trust is? And he was sort of smiling. He was in quite a lot of pain. And he said, well, first of all, as you can see, Kim, your plans, even though you're very good at executing them, and you pull off all sorts of extraordinary stuff, I think it's about time that you stopped making plans. So I said, okay. And then what? And he said, and also, can you please put the backup plan to one side for a few weeks? And then I went, but then how will I? He said, just give it a go. Just promise me, give it a go. And I said, well, then how do you know when the trust is working? He says, very simple. When you've given up the plans and you really breathe into it and you're feeling uncomfortable and scared, you know you're trusting because something's going to be put in front of you. Divine source, whatever you want to call it, or higher self. And sure enough, when I gave up on everything, something happened here that was completely out of the blue. I had no thought of doing, and then it just escalated from there. And so from then on, it was like, I mean, sure, you have to tie up the camel and things have to happen. But if I go into some kind of deep thing, I just go, I'm letting go, and then watching the guidance and the guidance come. And I think you, like a muscle, you get better and better at it. And the other thing he said, which was beautiful, Becky, and it fits in with asking the higher power, is that how could that trust and faith possibly not work when it is working through us? It's when we are essentially, therefore, the vehicle, the channel for it to express itself. So the irony is that getting out of the way produces that guidance and that trust and faith. So you don't have to make an effort for it. It's more about letting go of the things that are getting in the way of it. And that's when life suddenly becomes so beautiful. My life is simpler than it's ever been compared to how I was brought up. I have no possessions. I'm not wearing that as a badge of honor, but my heart is so full of these beautiful interactions and inspirations of other brave, wonderful, dedicated, caring, extraordinary humans, that it's like I'm going, oh my God, I'm just I feel so lucky, so blessed.
Kim, you've explained that so beautifully, and I just love that you say that, because I mean, it's okay to have possessions or it's okay to not have possessions, but when you recognize that what really matters is the heart connections, and what's really enriching is the tapestry of life with other people around us, and animals and the plants and the the world. I was going somewhere with this and I've forgotten it now because, oh gosh, I've forgotten where I was going. I had a thread and then I lost it. Never mind. Does anyone else want to say something? Will I just remember?
Oh gosh.
I think something very beautiful was about to occur. I feel like that you were on that thread, and
I was on the line between. Sorry, Chris. I was there reaching out. It's the interface between with keeping an open mind with the inspiration and source. And I was there, and I kind of did a U-turn. It was a kind of it's like a missile didn't quite reach its target. Came down again.
the
I'll
humans got
remember it 'cause I'm
involved.
almost there.
That's happened to me in this conversation. I think because someone says something, I'm like, oh yeah, and then I connect to it, but then we go on to another beautiful chapter here, and then it just kind of gets lost. That's okay. Actually, I was thinking, Kim, much of what you talked about kind of circles back to breath work, and you have a new offering. And so I thought that this may be a good time to share a little bit with our viewers about that.
That's very kind. Yeah, I mean, been thinking about it for a while, and mainly from doing these Tuesday. I think we're nearly in our 7th year, coming up to 7 years, which is quite a cycle. And I think we've grown 5,000-6,000 people around the world, and every week 50 people, something like that. And some people bring their cats, other people do it as a family or as a couple. But what I love about it is that people now have got to this very relaxed state. Maybe some people drop in once a month. Some people know that, it could be once every 6 months. Some people religiously come every week, but it's a wonderful thing. And even though at 10:30 p.m. Bali time, I normally go, oh gosh, I'd really like to be going to sleep now. There's that thing again, the attention, and then 11 o'clock comes around. And because I'm with a lovely group of people, the inspiration flows. But one of the things that occurred to me, and I've been thinking about it for a while, and from feedback from some of the members, is like, that's not a great time for me. And I just thought, well, why don't I just record it? Because every breath work is uniquely different. It's not very long, the breathworky part, 35 minutes. And even if you don't complete it all, some people just drop in for 10 minutes. So I just suggested, why don't we record it and then have it up for a week? And then while I'm at it, I do this thing called felt sense meditation, which is for non-meditators like me with monkey minds, where really all you're doing is you're using the breath to kind of follow the pathways of the body, the meridians, that, like, you're sort of saying thank you to your feet for carrying you on the earth. You're kind of like going, oh, my knee's kind of an interesting junction. And then the bone, we don't really normally talk to ourselves like this. I mean, some people do, but it's kind of like going, hello, I live in a body. And it's a felt sense. It's about feeling, oh, and that might be I've got a sore shoulder or a lower back, but it's like acknowledging how you're feeling, where you're at, and then kind of using your hands as healing hands to sort of offer yourself healing or your partner. Super simple. And then we do that once a week and then have that available. And then I thought, well, hang on. Then we've got the whale music. We've got the whale. People are always saying, I love that whale music you put into the breathworks. So we've never released it. So that's there. I've just had the whale film put into, a huge format so that if you have want to watch it on a bigger screen, you can, and share that. And then, so every week something new, and then really getting into these astrological energy updates, because people are finding them really helpful, because they're not thinking, oh my God, I thought it was me. So where there's a really big astrological thing, and I'm not an astrologer, but I have friends who are, sharing a little bit helpful things, community things. And then one of my favorites is this way of breathing for a very short time, morning and evening. Can be 5 minutes or 7 minutes. It's not a big, long thing. And then just noticing before you do anything, that little bit of felt sense, you giving yourself that tiny bit of time before leaping out of bed to just check in with yourself, for yourself. I am here now in this. And just building up a little bit of a practice. And I think we talked about it a couple of months ago, and then I'm going, oh my God, it's actually happening. And I'm really excited. I call it Inner Circle. And I think I worked out with Simon that it was less than a cup of tea a week or so. I mean, it's really very, very accessible, because I want it to be accessible. I do it anyway because I love it. And I just I know the effect that it can have on people's lives. So I'm inspired to share it, and I hope then other people will share it with other people, and that we can get everybody breathing, just like, circling back to the beginning of today when we got the inspiration in my class that I do 3 days a week or whatever. And I just said to everybody, right, speak in your own language. So we had Russian, Arabic, Chinese, Turkish, and South American or Spanish. And of course, I decided that I would do mine in Irish, and then someone else did theirs in New Zealand. So we had a few accents as well. But it was like, I went, oh my God, every language, when it's spoken with love, when we inspire, when we do the breath, it just sounds like love. And it was like another one of those moments. And so, yeah, that's what we're sharing. I think I've described it. So we call it Inner Circle, and it means that you can access breath work 24/7, and it'll be different every week. You can, and don't have to worry about getting there on time for the free one, because we're going to record it. And then gradually we're going to build more music, more events. And then next year, every month, we're going to share the live fire ceremonies with the priests here. And then we're going to invite different people to share. And it's like, again, more of this interactive communal sharing that is what you guys are all about anyway. And so, yeah, that's my inspiration to, I want as many people as possible to know that literally in 30 minutes of breathing this way, in and out, you can change your life. You can calm your nervous system. You can breathe into your fears or your joy or whatever it is. Allow yourself to be present, and this way it can be really, really helpful in your life, because it saved my life. It's the thing that got me away from the darkest moment in my existence. And the gift that was given me, I want to share with as many as I can. Plus, I love Simon and Becky, and we've been doing lots of things for a long time. And I feel like our friendship's just, I don't know, it's just such a beautiful thing in my life. And I'm also very touched and moved that you guys decided that it was a nice thing to share with the members. And so I'm going to really make sure that it's fantastic and beautiful, and I can't wait to share more.
Thank you, Kim, so much for describing that. And I have been a part of many of your breathwork sessions, and I know I've told you before, and I think I've said it on the podcast before. There's just not words for the journey that it takes you on. And this offering with the breath work, the healing with the hands, the whale music, which I've heard pieces of too, which is so inspirational. Gosh, the astrology, the quick morning and evening breath work, and so much more. I'm going to go join right after the podcast. It sounds amazing, and thank you for making it so affordable. So, how do people find more information? I think it's on Simon's website now. Either maybe Becky or you can answer that, Kim, because I'm sure there's people who are interested.
Well, can Kim give us a link, and then we can have it on this podcast as well? And
Yes.
Chris, like you, I'm going to join as well. I really want to do this because I'm always reminded of the quote, my favorite quote of yours, Kim, and you've done like so many quotes that I love, but I can't quote it exactly, but we'll sort of paraphrase it. Is that basically um it's like God or inspiration or enlightenment is just one breath away, because a lot of people think, and you talk about how it's all within the heart as well. So the heart and the breath, that's our connection to ourselves, our soul, our higher self. It's not somewhere way out there. It's not through other people in structures where you need to go through someone to connect with God. You can connect, it's just one breath away. We're always there, and it's not a kind of constant teaser like a carrot on a stick, but it is, it's achievable, it's attainable, and it's about connecting consciously with the breath, isn't it? It's
It,
about focusing on it And understanding
the
your
amazing,
relationship with it, and the fact that you are the breath and you can travel with the breath.
yeah. And of course, it's called conscious connected breathing. I mean, there's a few bits of alignment in it.
Okay.
That is actually what the technical term for
Okay.
the technique. Then I know it's pretty wild. I mean, it is pretty wild. Someone came in the other day and they kind of look at me and they say, oh, and they're looking nervous. And I'm going, why are you looking so nervous? And I said, let's just relax. We're not doing this. Isn't registered trademarked. I don't know how you trademark a breath technique. So that's number one. So don't worry about that. No one's going to be shouting at you, breathe, breathe, or anything like that. No one's pushing anyone. No one's interfering. There are a few suggestions. And then they go, oh, yeah, but I've never done it before. And they're standing in front of me and they're breathing. And I'm going, do we really believe that you've never done this before? I said, excuse me. And I turn to the whole room and I say, was everyone in here born? And everyone's sort of nodding. Yeah, yes, we were. Well, do you remember your first breath? That was it. And everybody took that first breath. And it does something when people go, oh my God, I was in the amniotic fluid. I was floating around in mum's belly, womb. And then I came up and I went, and it's like, wow, what was it like? And often people do travel back, if you do this a little bit, to start kind of reliving memories. Sometimes, of course, they can be some difficult memories, maybe that have been lying hidden, but it's very gentle, very safe, very good for the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems. It's very good for anxiety. And it also sort of gives you the gift of, well, what do you need today? And it could be that you need a little bit of inspiration. It could be that you need a little bit of relaxation. It could be that you're working on a memory. It could be the little bit of old trauma. Or maybe it's just something, there's an idea that's being born and you're not giving it enough space. And so that little breath in the morning for 7 minutes can really get the inspiration. Inspire means to breathe in. Inspire. It's like all the clues are here. And I often say this to people because I used to have the analogy of me when I had my struggle with addiction and alcohol and things. Simon likes to make jokes about hip flasks with me. We have a good banter going on that. But occasionally I would fall into a ditch or whatever. Hasn't happened for a very, very, very long time. And people say, well, what do you do? And I go, I breathe. And I think it's a healthy addiction because we do it, I can't remember how many thousand times a day. And if we just bring a little bit of consciousness to it, just a little bit, where we, that thing where suddenly we get, well, that we're in the car or this or something's going on, just those moments of, and sighing and just softening here. And the body, it's like a balm. It's like, this is the intelligent part of our design, that's for sure. This breath is a miracle. And we just weren't taught that it was the miracle. It's our life. It's the sound of our life. It's the creativity of our life. And of course, the exhale, which can be all sorts of things. It can be a prayer going out, but it can also be something that you don't need, that you just want to let go of. You can just sort of let it go in the out breath, or the surrender. And then surrendering is also about that thing of understanding what trust and faith is. And the great news is, in we come again with more inspiration. And that's the cycle of our life. And so it's, people say, well, what is it? It's a ceremony. Our life is the sacred ceremony. Our breath is sacred. Our life is sacred. And anyone who's out there watching this, you will know by now, if you've been hanging out with Becky and Chris long enough, life is sacred and there are people that care, and it's because you care. It's like every human being has this heart capacity, infinite capacity of infinite love, unconditional love. And then maybe just one last little tiny thing is, like, sometimes we get disconnected And people think, well, how does this work? And a young man from China came in. I may have mentioned it before, but it's such a simple, powerful story. And he said to me at the beginning, I feel very numb. And there's a lot of kind of control in that society. And again, I hope I'm not overgeneralizing, but he was feeling very stuck. Very, very, very intelligent, lovely man. And he's breathing quite shallowly. And I just sat beside him, and I could feel, because part of my job to do this, what breath work is about, is I could feel all of this emotion stuck in his chest. And he wasn't breathing that deeply. And I just thought, well, what do I do here? And I just had this inspiration. And I just picked up his hand, and I put his hand in my hands. And I just held his hand for a few minutes. Breathing, I said, breathe. Breathing in, breathing out. And then just suddenly these tears just came. Just like a flood of tears. No big drama or hysterics. It was just like these floodgates opened. It was a very, very beautiful experience. And then at the end, I asked him, I said, would you mind if you shared with about 70 people there, complete strangers? And he just said, I've never been touched with so much love before in my life. When I was a little boy in China, our parents were taught not to mollycoddle us or touch us. And he said, Kim, I think of all the hundreds of millions of people who feel like I feel. And if only I'd known that it was simple as just breathing a little bit and having my hand held. Wow. I don't know what the next chapter in this story is, but I guess why I'm sharing it is that it's not complicated, what we're talking about. And going back to the simplicity of your breath, it may seem simple. And people say, but you're not doing anything. Nothing's going to happen. How could anything happen? And it just does, because that's who we are. It's bringing back the divine, which is already here.
That's the crux of it. We're taught to believe that it's all terribly complicated, that esoteric is all terribly complicated, and you're to reach the fount of knowledge and wisdom is all terribly complicated. But actually it's incredibly simple. The fundamentals of life are so simple. The basic wisdom and I remember when we first started the podcast, and I said, I really want to call them sacred wisdom. But I was thinking of myself, I said, I don't know if I'm qualified to talk about sacred wisdom. I was really going over and over it, thinking, well, do I know enough about sacred wisdom to talk about sacred wisdom? And then really it's just debunking the myth that sacred wisdom is terribly, terribly complicated and beyond the average person's ability. That's so not true. The sacred wisdom is the fundamental principles, bringing it back to basics. It is breathing. It is one's connection. It is really the conscious connection and understanding that we are a soul in a body. And as you say, when you're thanking your feet, just feeling the energy of your feet. I remember going through a phase of doing somatic yoga, and I really want to do it again. And one of the exercises I remember doing was like grounding in your body. So just like sitting there and, just sort of rubbing your toes with your hands and just feeling the soles of your feet with your hands, and that's just focusing your consciousness on the soles of your feet. And then it's just recognizing that, and I've said this before, I can't remember where I said it, but I know a lot of people keep wanting to think about, how can I raise my vibration? How can I become, I don't know, more enlightened? How can I go from 3D to 5D? And for me, it's all about recognizing and appreciating that actually the soul's journey of being inside a physical body where one feels things so acutely so acutely, whether it's emotions or physical pain, or integrating the ability to understand our thoughts are with sort of, not only from our brain, but every cell of our body, like a mental body, and our emotions are connected with our thoughts, and everything has the impact on our physical body. Really getting to grips with life in a physical body here on Earth, for me, I think is the pinnacle of existence. It's not the kind of, oh, terrible treadmill, got to survive it, get through it, learn your lessons, and then you'll be enlightened. I'm seeing it from a different point of view, where it's such an honor and a blessing to be in a physical body, which, when it is healthy, is a miracle and a blessing. When there are issues with it, imbalances, pains, disease, it's a real challenge. And I've been there, and I know that. I've had lots of accidents, injuries, and illnesses. So I spent a lot of time working with my body to try and heal itself. And through that, I've really learned that living in a body is the greatest gift, because it gives us the opportunity to really be a creator in our own right. Otherwise, we are just more part of a big whole. We don't see and feel our individuality in any other way as we do when we're in a physical body, whatever that body is, whatever its pros and cons, whatever its good sides and its difficult sides are. It's only a short-lived time that we're in our bodies, and I firmly believe we reincarnate and have different bodies on Earth, different times, other planets as well. We as a soul have the opportunity to experience life in different forms all the time. But I just feel that is the greatest gift. So anyway, that's my tuppence worth that I've just sort of brought out here now as well.
The crucial thing is the demystification that you just spoke into. It's like when we sit on the floor together in a circle. Okay, I may be the guide, and I may have more experience, and there may be a young person who's just waking up or just having their first experience. But we sit in an unhierarchical way. We breathe together, finding the commonality of the experience, and see the validity of their experience and mine and the beautiful person at the back. And in that shared moment, we find that this embodiment is where it's at. This is the miracle. This is the divine. And the circle is the place where we can, you try and find the head of a circle, you're going to get a sore neck. And everybody can see one another because you're going to be going round and round. And there's this beautiful expression, mending the sacred hoop of life together. There's no one above, no one below, no one in front, no one behind. We're in this together. So, and then the taking care of the body, the embodiment. And if you start with the breath, and you start with the felt sense meditation, and then start looking after the diet, slow steps, easy steps. There isn't one pain or issue that can't be addressed. No rush, take it easy. We have to take things slowly, but it's incredible what we can get through, what we can get beyond. And then one of the most beautiful things that someone said to me, this teacher says, there is no pain and there is no suffering greater that cannot be held in the heart of unconditional love. In other words, the unconditional love that is in every human heart is greater than the sum of all the pains and suffering and ills of the world. And that's a big statement. I didn't used to believe that. I believed that my life was a disaster and over. And now every day I see it come alive in the hearts of just every human being that just steps into making an effort, taking an intention, putting some attention into the process, and then just surrendering to the inspiration of their life, which is the greatest gift that that we could ever have been given. And we're in this co-creation. So even though I wish I'd learned this earlier, because I'm, getting longer in the tooth, but my goodness me, I've still got time, and every breath now for me is not just sacred, it's like an opportunity to learn something, to inspire something, to be more in my heart, and then actually the weird thing is that you start living in eternity, sort of here and now. And actually then time kind of loses its meaning. And then, yes, sure, I know one day this body's going to drop. But, when I was younger, it was like, oh my God, I'm not looking forward to that. And now it's just like I'm completely relaxed because I just breathe into what I call the eternal now, the unborn, undying part of ourselves, which comes alive again. Don't tell everyone, through our breath. Our breath. We're doing it. We're being born and we're dying. And then here we go again. Oh, wow, we're getting really good at this. It's like, it's that simple. Don't tell anyone. It's like, let's make up some really complicated stuff. It's like, let's get them all anxious. Let's do a course that lasts 15 years and you've got to sit in a cave and tell you're nothing. Oh, hang on, I'm in my body. What's going on here? And I'm not putting anything down. I'm just saying, I'm just very glad that someone said to me, hey, mate, it's okay. You just need to breathe. And it saved my life.
I just wanted to say we've been going for a long time here, but it seems like it's been quick, and we could just go on and on with you, Kim. That just means we're going to have you back. And so I just wanted to share a couple of closing things, and then I'll turn it over to Becky. Kim, I love that image of unconditional love, just holding everything, and everything is okay when it's held in that unconditional love. That's such a beautiful visual. I have this visual of hands of just, this little pool of unconditional love, holding it, holding everything. I'm going to keep that image. I love it. Thank you for that. And then I wanted to just touch real quickly, Becky, talking about the privilege of being in a physical body. That just feels so profound to me, because we often, take for granted that our physicality, and it really is a blessing. And when you were talking about that, I thought that's part, us being in physical form is part of us bridging heaven and earth here, which I believe is part of what we're here to do, to bridge the spiritual with the physical. And you think about that, and instead of thinking about, well, I wish I didn't have these wrinkles and, this and that, like to focus more on what a privilege it is to be in the physical body, especially right now at this monumental time. So with that, Becky, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Chris. And thank you so much, Kim. And for me, there's a lot to take away from this podcast, but I really love the simplicity of it, and also just the fundamental principle that you can literally start your life over at any moment, and that there is always room for improvement. There's always room for expansion. There's always room for inspiration. And that in itself will be life enriching, whether it's in the last moments of one's life or whether it's at any point on the journey of life. So what I'm saying is, I'm saying it's never too late to start on this journey and connect with your inspiration, so that you recognize your connection with yourself and your soul, your higher self, and your consciousness, and reaching into your consciousness and appreciating that the consciousness has no bounds. In fact, and I'll tell you this funny story, twice in this podcast, I have managed to totally lose myself in my consciousness, rummaging around in the boxes of my mind. What was that thought I just had there? What was that thought I just had there? No, I've lost it. No, the consciousness is so expansive, and it can take you anywhere. Gosh, I'm just reminded of a film. I don't know who I was talking about. It was somebody. I think it's Shawshank Redemption. It's about a prisoner being in a prison, and they were in um, isolation in prison. But in fact, they handled it so well because they never felt imprisoned because their mind could take them anywhere. And I just want to sort of, in a way, finish with that. It's not completely unrelated to everything we've talked about because inspiration and the mind and consciousness can take you anywhere, really. But focusing on being in your body and connecting with your body and appreciating it as a vehicle for experiencing life on earth with all its highs and lows, for me, is the greatest gift. So I hope I finished that off nicely after having lost myself a few times.
Thank
It's all
you,
about that.
Becky.
Let the adventure begin. The greatest adventure is happening now.
Well,
Fantastic.
thank you, Kim. That's a perfect note to finish on. So thank you, Kim. Thank you, Becky. And thank you to all of our viewers. And we'll see you next time.